Today we're going to be reacting to the best games of 2022 by Gameranx. Guys, if y'all would do me a favor and leave a like and subscribe if you're new. And if you are new, you don't like the video, you can go ahead and leave a dislike and leave some hate, bro. That's cool too. All right, what we got here?
2022 is wrapping up,
damn.
so it's time to wrap up and talk about some video games. It's me, Jake, here to talk about the best games of 2022. These are the Gameranx video crew's picks. In the past, we usually do like big, crazy award show types of things, but the last 2 years we've been keeping it low key. We might try to change things up next year, but for this year, we kind of like to keep it kind of like a simple
We know Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok's gonna be on here.
recommendation list. We got together, we sat around the table and cobbled together some stuff we really like. A lot of it's stuff you've heard of, some of it isn't. Either way, just look at this not as like the end-all be-all games we think everybody should think are the best ever. No, just kind of like some fun recommendations from your friends here so you can get to know us a little bit more. Don't hate our picks, leave me alone. I definitely want to hear what yours are in the comments. If you've only played a couple of games this year, one game, two games, 20 games, it doesn't matter. Either way, leave your own personal list of some of your favorites. Because believe me, a lot of games came out this year, and even if you think it wasn't the greatest year for big AAA releases, there's a lot of gems. So we couldn't even cram them all in this video. So I've been talking way too much. Let's just roll right into the first pick. This is from one of our video editors who brought A Plague Tale Requiem. For us, it's just an awesome sequel to an already great game that pays off in pretty much every way, and for us really lived up to the expectations of the first game.
I've heard about this.
Although it does go in a little bit of a different direction
it,
and a little bit more crazy and action set piece heavy, and there's a bit of a tonal shift.
About rats or something?
Still, with all the new stealth tools and just deeper encounters and just some really great moments, it is a memorable game. Not to mention the fact that it is absolutely stunning looking with some really great music, but also some incredible performances by the lead voice actors. If you like stories in video games, if you like getting whisked away on an adventure like we do, we like single player, straightforward adventure games, Plague Tale Requiem is a great one. It's fun to play, but also the story is incredible. It's more personal this time around, and it'll leave you feeling something, and that's important to us here. Sounds corny, but we love when a game leaves a lasting impression, dude. Next up, we have a pick, one of a few games that we didn't do a before you buy video on. It's Return to Monkey Island. This was suggested by our editor, our gameplay capture guy behind the scene, Eric, who suggests that it's like kind of an outsider pick, but you have to mention it. You know, the Monkey Island games are iconic. So seeing Ron Gilbert, the series creator, returning after all these years is pretty surprising, but also the fact that the game turned out really damn good. Sure, like there was some and hawing about the new art style, but when you see it in motion, it looks really great, and a lot of the original voice cast is back here, and it's like grade A stuff. The puzzles are some of the best designed in the entire series, and the humor is pitch perfect. It's not like too goofy, it's not trying too hard, it's just natural, and it just worked for us here. It's not just a return to form for the series, it's up there with some of the best adventure games of all time. The puzzles are challenging, but not too obtuse or random. The dialogue is snappy and good, but it doesn't bog the game down. You never have to spend too much time hauling around environments, and the built-in hint system is really awesome and very helpful. It's just an all-around great adventure game. Even if you're not nostalgic for the series, we still just think it's really, really good and worth checking out. Next up, we gotta give some love to a JRPG, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. This is an epic 100+ hour JRPG that streamlines a lot of the overly complicated stuff from the previous games while still feeling better and more interesting, and then it tells a more personal and relatable, cool sci-fi story. The writing is a standout compared to most of the games of this type. It's just a lot better than what we've seen in recent years touching a lot of games. It's a massive, beautiful game with great characters, stellar voice acting, some incredible, almost god-tier music, and a fun and mostly intuitive battle system. Yes, basically the game is like one big tutorial. You know, you're still getting pop-up tutorials like almost literally 100 hours in the game. But it just keeps expanding its battle system and other systems and opening things up to the player, so it doesn't really feel stale ever. It's got everything you want in these types of games. Cool environments to explore, some despicable bad guys with some over-the-top bad guy music and voice acting, and a good amount of options for building out your characters. There's a lot more side quests this time around, and they're actually worth doing because a lot of the side quests just don't give you basic rewards. You unlock new members. It's the most refined, fun, and approachable entry in the series. You know, you don't have to have played the previous games to jump into this one, so consider it if you're a Switch person.
I take it back.
Radically switching gears, myself and Falcon both come to the table with Evil West. Evil West is not a perfect game. It's flawed, it can feel cheap, it can feel corny, but it still manages to be so unique. While on the one hand, you'll look at it as kind of like a third-person shooter mashup with the new modern God of War style gameplay. What they built here kind of feels like an homage or a love letter to early to mid 2000s games, like those games from, I'd say, the late PS2 to like the PS3 360 era, those mid-tier wild wacky games like Dark Watch and just a million other random games that ended up in the bargain bin but were still really charming and cool. Evil West is exactly like that. Not to mention the fact that it's just got cool monsters and
hey, what y'all know about the bargain bin, bro? Like, y'all don't know nothing about that, man. What do y'all know about the bargain bin,
a
man?
really fun combat system. It's not super complicated. There's not too much to say about this other than that, like, we're just backing up what we've been saying for years here. We love
game just came out, right? Like a month ago or something.
Fun action games. And while like there's been a lot of talk about like Bayonetta 3 and highlighting stuff like that, we wanted to give a little bit of love to Evil West. Now, one that I personally want to give a lot of love to is Cult of the Lamb. Cult of the Lamb did not get enough love from this channel this year, but it's one of my favorite games. I've put a ton of hours into it for just how unique and special it is. It is like the perfect hybrid of like an Animal Crossing kind of town management game mixed with a dungeon crawler with a cool demonic spin. You are tasked with straight up building a cult, but like in a cynical, funny way, like you're taking advantage of these poor other little creatures in the woods. Progressing, building up, powering things up, and then going into dungeons with some fun action dungeon crawler gameplay to get more rewards and progress things with some pretty good boss battles, but also just a really good vibe, tone, atmosphere that's like a little creepy but has a lot of levity and some incredible music, just like really good lo-fi jams. The game is quirky and charming, and while it looks a little cutesy on the surface, it's got a bit of an edge to it, but ultimately it's just a good game with a lot of addictive video game qualities, and it's like a big pot of soup. It takes a bunch of elements from all different types of games and makes something really cool and really unique. It's definitely not like anything we've played in a minute. Next up, switching gears, we're getting a little crazy here, getting a little controversial, but Falcon wanted to bring up Sonic Frontiers. Yes, his before you buy was fairly critical, but it was from a place of love. You know, Sonic Team finally got their crap figured out somewhat and made a pretty darn good game that is only made better by a physics mod on PC that adds momentum and tightens up turning. But even if you don't play with that, if you like Sonic enough and can put up with some jank here and there, Sonic Frontiers has some good gameplay moments to it. I know some people trashed it, and it's pretty fair to be very critical of it, but ultimately it left us excited for the future of Sonic. Even though the game needs more love and more time in the oven, they figured out a lot of Sonic elements in an open world, and we're excited to see what comes next. Next up from Juan, we have a game called Neon White, another one that we didn't do a before you buy for and didn't have a lot of time to cover, but essentially, in his words, this is fun and addictive. It's got solid gameplay, and the sense of speed and movement is so satisfying. The randomness that cards bring to this gameplay, this whole element of traversal, will really get you hooked and turn you into a leaderboard person, a perfectionist. There's a story, there's a sense of style with this game that is very different, very cool. You know, you might be a fan, but you might not. But still, it's that raw gameplay, that freaking fun factor that this game brings that is unbelievable. Neon White is just really cool, straight up. Next up, we have a game that I've talked about a lot on the Friday news show, and Andrew brings it to the table. Vampire Survivors. In his words, it's a game that shocked me twice. At first, I couldn't believe that people were losing their minds over something where there's one controller input, but then I couldn't believe how good it was after I played and how I still play it often to this day. There's something that's such a blast about picking your vampire hunter and building them up to the point of taking on what seems like hundreds of enemies while firing off like 5 different weapons as straight up pandemonium is happening all around you. In this game, you're like the embodiment of chaos, and it gets so crazy that it'll make you dizzy. You drop in, you take out enemies, you collect currency, and you keep on leveling up as your hunter as enemy mobs get more crazy and more challenging, which you match by getting more and more powerful. And you do that for like a half an hour or so until death shows up and rocks your shit. Then you do it all over again, slowly unlocking different hunters and more weapons and abilities.
Hey, this is
a little bit of a subgenre, and people will always argue that like there's a better one or there's a different one, but Vampire Survivors has such charm to it, the way it is clearly like...
I have to say, man, we're halfway through this video, and they threw some games out that I was not expecting to be on this list, man. I was expecting, what is that, like AAA titles, man. I was really expecting that. They got a lot of like B and C list games. However, I mean, I'm capping a little bit on them just because of the way some of them look. But I do know that some people do be grinding these games, man. Some people love these games, and hey, look, I'm all for it, bro. It's just not for me.
like a love letter to games like Castlevania.
To be fair, I don't even buy games like that though. Like, come on, man, this shit's ridiculous, bro.
But also just being like this little endorphin rush thing of an addictive game. It's really fun on Steam Deck. That's where Andrew and I both played it a ton. But it's on multiple platforms now, including mobile, which is dangerous. Some of you guys are gonna see this game and just think we're crazy and full of shit because it just looks like this boring idle clicker. And like, okay, I get it. But
I just
can't help it. We really loved it and sunk a ton of time into it this year. Our next pick from Eric is a game called Tunic. Tunic really manages to capture like the mysterious feeling of playing an old game back in the day when you had no idea what you were doing. It has some of the most rewarding exploration and some really amazing like aha moments where things finally click and you realize you could do something that didn't seem possible just moments ago. It's a really fascinating combination of a Legend of Zelda type thing with something more mysterious and weird like Fez. It's never too tricky, but it makes you feel like a genius.
Bro, where do they be finding these games
that
at,
can be
man?
really satisfying. This is honestly a game where it's best to go in as blind as possible and discover things for yourself. It's not just the Zelda Fox game. It's so much more than that. Next up, another small indie title. This is from Juan. It's called Norco. In Juan's opinion, it's one of the most underrated indie games of the year. It's a point-and-click adventure game with, yes, a lot of reading, but it's in this surrealist Louisiana. It's a location and a vibe and a tone and atmosphere you would not really experience in a game like this typically, and it is absolutely dripping with it. It is a very cool story, and it'll probably sink its teeth into you if you give it a try. I do believe it has a demo on Steam, so maybe consider that. It's been a hell of a year for point-and-click adventures between Norco and one of my personal favorites, Pentiment from Obsidian. There's just a lot for players who like clicking on things, picking things, and reading good stories. Is it Fortnite? No. Is it cool? Yes. All right, time for one of the best Christmas sweaters, and one of the best games of the year, one of my personal favorites, and also Andrew's choice here, Sifu. Sifu is super tight, and honestly, that will be enough to sum up how we feel about this game, but we can't just give you 4 words. I mean, why is it super tight? Well, it's essentially a kung fu movie meets that hallway fight scene in season 1 of Daredevil with like the vibe and tone of John Wick. It's kind of the holy trinity or the big 3 or whatever. The developers Slow Clap here really nailed the combat mechanics. They took what they learned from Absolver, put it in a cool different structure, and refined some things and made a game that really pushes you, really challenges you to learn the hell out of it, but it is so rewarding because every moment, every level, every encounter is so memorable. The sense of style is wild, and the progression that you probably heard about where every time you die, you age,
stop beating women,
really unique. The way it's set up, it really makes for one of those games where it's like, just one more run. Come on, just one more time. And that makes it all the more impressive considering like they just figured out how to make combat and beating people's ass in a room that endlessly replayable. They've added stuff to it. They've added like different options, different modes, different skins and stuff like that.
Took us 10 minutes, but we got to a game I like.
But it is so satisfying. When you get good at this game, it is In Andrew's words, Sifu is an achievement. Its simplicity in overall structure and the intricacies of the combat combine to create what we would describe as a perfect video game. That's high praise, I know, but we got another solid one. We're getting into predictable territory, but God of War Ragnarok. All of us here pretty much put this on the list just because
but we know that one's a given, though. I wouldn't even say that's predictable. The game's gonna be on the list because you know it's gonna be good. It can't even be. It can be predictable if you say so, but you know the game's gonna be good, so it's like, duh.
2018, we got a lot more of it here. More gameplay, more encounters, more endgame stuff, more to kill, more side quests, bigger explorable areas, but also a damn good story. We're all kind of arguing, we're still kind of like, you know, tossing it up whether or not it's better than God of War 2018 story-wise, but still, doesn't matter. It's still a well-told and interesting story. Seeing Kratos kind of lighten up a little bit after all this time is very interesting. Seeing Atreus grow into what Kratos kind of taught him and kind of beat him into submission to be was really cool. And seeing more of this Norse mythology world that they're building out and some good old-fashioned God of War gods that are just shitty and you want to punch them was really good to see. They definitely delivered on a lot of that stuff. The game is still new, so like we're not going to go into spoiler territories or anything like that. A lot of people are still working their way through it because there is a lot of game here, a lot of gameplay, a lot of side quests and stuff, but it is all very satisfying.
That nigga looks like a tough ass.
Is damn good. From the music to all that gameplay that I said, but for me personally, really like the story and the performances and stuff, it's worth highlighting. It's worth celebrating. They did it. You know, they didn't screw it up. And also, like, we're wondering where the hell things could go next. Last but not least, all of us here from A Tool Behind the Scenes, Eric, Andrew, Juan, all of us, in terms of like the game we've played the most this year and the videos you guys have watched the most, the videos we've made the most about, it's Elden Ring. Stop me if you've heard this one before. I mean, yeah, Elden Ring won Game of the Year at the Game Awards. Many other websites have given it its Game of the Year. So like, we hate to just be like, yeah, us too. But like, it is what it is. It's really good. We really like it. Especially for me here personally, it's probably like the less.
Hey, I will never play Elden Ring a day of my life, bro. Unless I want to cry repeatedly and break equipment, I will never play Elden Ring. I've seen so many people rage on that. Nah.
Of the Soulsborne person of the crew, it really hooked its claws in me more than any other From Software game. And that's just because of the really cool open world that it was just riddled with things to discover every moment. Like, there's just so much hidden shit out there, and it's really up to you to just go out there, figure it out, and have fun. And that's what I liked about it the most. Not to mention just some good old FromSoft RPG stuff with unique character builds and a lot of flexibility and variety
looks like
there.
a dog, a rat, and a baby T-Rex.
And also bosses with cool lore behind them that we've seen in a From game in a while. For many people and many of us here, like, this is that type of game. This is like what many video games are supposed to be. The ones that really push you, that challenge you, that like mold you into a different type of player. I like how the sweaties can get with this, but for me, it was all about the vibes. I just thought it was cool, mysterious, challenging, and fun. And I mean, frankly, at this point, I don't know what else we could say about Elden Ring. We've talked about it to death. Other than that, we're looking forward to some possible DLC or an expansion pack or something at some point. But that's a pretty straightforward year, dude. That's 2022. So I want to know what you guys think in the comments in terms of...
Okay, look, man. I am not gonna lie. We love Gameranx around here. We really do. However, this is probably the most unrelatable video I've ever seen, bro. A lot of the games, where do they find these fucking B, C rated games, man? Like, I'm not even talking shit that they're B and C rated, but like, I've never heard of them before. Obviously, it's their job to find games like this and not promote them, but if they're good, you know, shout them out, give them love, you know, that's cool. It's just like, damn, I didn't know there was gonna be so many of these type of games on their list, bro. They were like for the first 10-11 minutes, it was nothing but games. I was like, who the fuck is that? They look like fucking what is that game? Terratia, whatever the hell that. They all look like that type of game. Or I do like I forgot what the game is, but it's on Switch, man. It's like you're a farmer or some shit. It's like, it's not Farmville, definitely not that, but I don't know, you got to explore. I don't know what the game's called, but I remember playing it for about 15 hours and it was solid. Like, it was really solid. But yeah, like I said at the beginning of the video, man, I knew Ragnarok was gonna be hard. I knew Elden Ring was gonna be on here. It's predictable, but I know both of the games are good. Even though I would never play Elden Ring, I know a lot of people love it and a lot of people say it's good, so I knew that was on there. And we do love Gameranx around here. They do make so much quality videos about games, man. I love reacting to their stuff. It's very important. It gives me what I need to know about any type of game that's coming up or any type of game I'm looking forward to. And if y'all are the same way, if y'all are trying to look for what new games are coming out in 2023, check out this video right here.
Shawty catch a vibe, yeah, I had to put her on. Bought a two-seater, yeah, we heading for the sun. Shawty got my high, I ain't tripping for the funds. Yeah, I won't start, I ain't tripping, I'm a stunt.